Hey everybody, I am back with another not TV, movie spoiler review, and it's the sequel to Nanny McPhee. Nanny McPhee Returns. Before we continue, please like and subscribe. Follow me in the links in the description below. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Patreon, uh, if you want to further support the channel. And this is going to be relatively short, but uh, like this movie's not terrible. It's just very mid. It's a very mid type of movie, but this is set, many years after the events of the first film. You can tell by how the way, the setting of the film, but how it ends as well. So this is set during WW2 time, and once again, this was written by Emma Thompson, starring Emma Thompson as Nanny McPhee. This time directed by Susanna White. It stars Maggie Gyllenhaal, but I can't help but think of Rachel as Isabel Green, the mother of the Green family. Rhys Ifans as Phil Green, her brother-in-law. Issa Butterfield as Norman Green, the eldest child. Lil Woods as Megzy, as the middle child. And Oscar Steer as Vincent Green, the youngest. Eros Vlahos as Cyril Gray, their cousin. And Rosie Taylor Ritson as Celia Gray, the sister to Cyril, but also the cousin. And we got Maggie Smith as Mrs. Agatha Dorothy, as the shop owner that Mrs. Green works at. And couldn't believe this. I saw this in like a flashback, and I'm like, is that? But yeah, the husband who's off fighting in the war is named Rory Green, played by Ewan McGregor. And we got Ralph Fiennes as Lord Grey, the father to Cyril and Celia, and the general in the War Office. So, I'm about to say Maggie Gyllenhaal, but Isabel is, once again, you got that whole parent struggling to deal with rambunctious kids. Now, give it credit here. These kids weren't as bad as the first round of kids from the first film. Their rambunctiousness is a little bit more understandable, but they seem to be a little bit more responsible. But given they live in the country, so kind of like, tending to like their little farm, they learn a little bit of quick about like some responsibility, especially the oldest child, who isn't such a little brat like the first eldest child. Because maybe because they lived in a city, it was a little bit more spoiled, but also with the whole nuance of recently losing a mom and the father trying to keep things together. Here, they have something akin to that, but the kids isn't, so naughty. They're just like their struggle is dealing with their city cousins who has been sent by their parents to live with Isabel to get away from, like, because during WW2 the thing was kind of craziness, and I'm pretty sure it was so hectic they don't know how things will shape out, and if the Germans at the time would dare attack London, and all this other stuff, they figure like, okay, let's get them out to the countryside until things, at least relatively died down. And of course, the kids are Cyril and Cecilia are very spoiled little brats and pretty much getting pretty much anything they want. So now they in the country and they're not used to it and they just want to go back home. You realize later that, you know they're struggling with some stuff with their parents outside the whole situation with the war. Uh, and of course, there's some parallels between Cyril and Norman because they both look up to their father in very high regards. They see them as like their heroes. Ironically, both are part of, are fighting for the Allied forces in the war, but from two different ends. Rory's more so as like a common soldier, while uh, Cyril's father is a high-ranking general. And so these kids fighting amongst each other because the city kids are not respecting uh, things in the house, even to the point of touching stuff that belonged to their parents, and the fact that they don't. There's been months since they last got a letter from their father, so they're already on edge and scared and worried about what's going on with him, and they're daring to mess with his stuff. So that causes like a big uproar of a fight, and of course, Isabel's working and with like a kind of baddie type of woman, not evil, mind you, just kind of ditzy. And so she's struggling, trying to straighten things out at home while getting pestered by the brother-in-law who is trying to get her to sign her half of the land of the farm, so that way he can give it to pay off his gambling debts to this woman who's sending these two hench ladies threatening to cut out his kidneys if he doesn't pay up, essentially. So Isabel is freaking out, doesn't know what to do. She's stressed, doesn't even have time to freaking breathe and have like a sip of tea, while she's obviously concerned about her fate of her husband. That's when Nanny McPhee shows up, and this time with a crow, which she's like annoyed with constantly because she never had some kind of crow partner before. And so she uses her magic to make the kids, you know, stop hitting yourself kind of situation. And the youngest boy, can't control his body and is about to toss the pile of letters sent by the father previously into the fire. And so Nanny McPhee says, like, it'll all stop if you apologize to each other. And so they all apologize. Everything goes back to normal. Things aren't destroyed and the letters are fine. And so Nanny McPhee tells them, like, hey, I need you to get, you're going to have to double up. A couple of you kids got to double up. And, of course, the kid's like, I'm not sharing no bed with him. I'm not sharing no bed with her. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you could have just maybe had the brother and sister double up and, like, the cousins double up in the other bed, so there won't be like any kind of like bickering about that. But she's trying to foster some kind of camaraderie with these cousins so they can truly behave like an actual family. And so out of like a sheer attitude, like, I'd rather share like my bed with a cow. Like, of course the cows and the other animals have names, but I'm not going to go over that. So the boy said like I'd rather share like a bed with a cow, while the girl says like I'd rather share like a bed with the goat. And then the youngest kid just you know just want to feel included. It's like I want to share a bed with an elephant. Uh, so Nanny McPhee is like okay. So magically get the their cow, the goat, and strangely some baby elephant that's pretty much maybe need to be Dumbo come waltzing in, and they just hop uh, uh, in their bed for at least the night, and they disappear by the morning. So Cyril surmised like, oh, she must be using some kind of gas or something to mess with our minds. So he think like, oh, I'll just put on a gas mask, so like I'm not gonna be fooled by that stuff. But then that night, uh, the brother-in-law he lets loose their prize piglets, who they plan on selling to a person so they can get money for like a new tractor, so that way they can help with the harvest and everything like that. So while the mom is off to work, the kids are freaking out because like, oh my god, like our pigs are gone. We need like help. Like Cyril, uh, Cyril, and Cecilia, can you help us? And of course they like, no, I'm not going out and getting mud on my clothes and all this other stuff. And Norman, points out, I bet if it was your dad, you would want somebody to help you. So the green kids go out to find their piglets, and Nanny McPhee like looks at Cyril's like, is that true, Cyril? Wouldn't you want somebody to help you with a problem with for your father kind of thing? And of course, like Cyril's like begrudging like, fine, yeah. And so, and of course, the spoiled little girl wearing the mom's wedding dress for some doggone reason, because I know the reason. All of her clothes got messed up, while I was, being taken out the car because it's like muddy and everything like that. And I don't know why their parents didn't prepare. You going out to the countryside, you would think you would have them dressed appropriately and not in their fancy church get up kind of situation. Why would you like go out? You're going to the country. What did you think that meant? And didn't they warn them like, hey, it's a farm, so you probably should be dressed accordingly? But it's pretty much on all of them. And of course, the kids don't know any better, but they should have been warned. But whatever. So the only nice thing that Cecilia thinks like, oh, she can possibly wear is her aunt's wedding dress. So, and Nanny McPhee gives her some galoshes so that way she can go out and help. And of course, Nanny McPhee does a whammy on the piglets so they can do all these crazy kooky things like synchronized swimming in the lake and everything like that. But this builds some more camaraderie with the cousins so they can foster a friendship in a sense. They managed to round up the piglets and got their money. The Cyril and Cecilia sees their mom's driver show up to hand over a pair of new shoes for the daughter, which she doesn't even care about at this point, because we find out that they're going through a divorce. Clearly they understood that, and this is like an excuse to get the kids somewhere. They don't have to see that in their faces. Well, they just need their mom. And of course, the mom seemingly too busy to come see them. while she's going through her little situation. We never see the mom, but I kind of wish we did. Uh, but anyway, uh, Isabel decides to have like a little picnic, with all the family, and of course she brings along her boss and her husband. And God, this is the most cringy part of the film, where this dude uh, tries to warn them about like the possibility of a, one of the planes accidentally dropping a missile on a on an area without uh, meaning to, and you got to prepare for that kind of stuff. And then he decides upon himself to demonstrate in the most cringy fashion of like mimicking a plane, even doing sound effects. And it's like, oh yes, please charade us how planes work. And then I also thought about, I was like, well, this is doing WW2. It doesn't. I'm pretty sure it probably didn't take much to entertain kids back then, with so little stuff to do in terms of entertainment. You know, hearing from like boomers, they got like, you know, stickball and stuff like that. I was like, wow, y'all didn't have much in terms of entertainment. Any little thing could entertain you. Like you got like jacks. It's like you bounce a ball and scoop up like little steel things off the ground. And I've seen images of kids like taking a stick and some kind of round metal thing and try to kick it down the street. I've seen images of that stuff and I was like, wow, that's go. Is that what counts for entertainment back then? Like, wow, that's so fucking boring. It was like, I mean, as a kid, at least I had like action figures before like I got into video games. And so it's like, at least you can, I mean, it's during a particular time period, but I'm not sure their active imagination is like, I don't know, it's probably, I won't say limited, but at least, during like the 70s into the 80s, people had like action figures, and girls had dolls and things of that sort before video games became prevalent. But then the brother-in-law shows up with a yellow letter saying that their father was killed in action. And so the mom's completely devastated and the kids are devastated. But Norman refuses to believe, knowing his father had some kind of sixth sense kind of situation, or given who who the actor is, maybe the Force, and would intuitively know, like, what certain danger is or whatever. He would have been able to, because as he put it, feel it in his bones that something is amiss, so he wouldn't just be out of nowhere killed in action. He believes his father's still out there. So Cyril chooses to believe his cousin, and they come up with a scheme where it's like, oh, your father is high up in the war office, so we should go down go downtown and go see him, and to see if the letter is true. There might be a mistake. And this is very wishful thinking, given the fact that during the time period we're dealing with here, but we'll get to it. Nanny McPhee offers to give them a lift, and so she drives the boys downtown London. And this is where I probably have like my biggest grievances. There is a, kind of like a traffic jam, but more so with London soldiers, on their horses. And so Nanny McPhee tells one of the boys to turn like a dial on the bike so that way they can fly over them. But then it's like, see, just brazenly, just out in the open, utilizing magic. You know, she, nods at the statue, and the statue nods back, and a statue of a lion roars. I'm not sure what part of London this is, mind you, but I'm like, oh my god! It was like in the first film, you were a little bit more subtle with this, so nobody can't really tell whether or not you're using magic outside of the children. But now you're out in the open wielding magic like you're freaking Doctor Strange. And it's like, whoa, okay. Like, this is where it kind of like, I don't say bothers me, but it just seems like I would have preferred Nanny McPhee or these Mary Poppins types of characters that only uses their magic around little children and not around openly where adults could possibly see that don't believe or whatever, so that way it can be some kind of secret left into interpretation or whatever like that. But that's what I would prefer in characters like Nanny McPhee, and not just willy-nilly like that, because that's the whole point of the character, in my opinion. Just like the little subtleness to the magic, and not just outright causing like a lion to roar in broad freaking daylight. And of course nobody chooses to acknowledge it, but I just call cap on that. Then she meets up with one of the what do you call those guards that stand in front of the Buckingham Palace. I keep wanting to call them the red coats, but no, they got like a particular name escaping me right now. What the heck is that? Crap. Matter of fact, he's played by Nanzo Anonzi, who was in the Dracula TV show that I reviewed last October for Halloween review month, which you can check out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. And it turns out, it's just a royal guard. It's gonna call him the royal guard. And turns out he was once a young kid that Nanny McPhee looked after back in the day. So like, how many people that Nanny McPhee looked after in London over the years? And I'm not saying like I need to know like where Nanny McPhee came from, and sometimes you don't need a freaking origin story to some characters. So I don't need any kind of prequel or where Nanny McPhee came from or whatever like that. That's part of the mystery and the magic. But it's just like, I think like half of London should by this point know or recognize Nanny McPhee. Case in point, once I point out something at the end. But the boys are let in, and they ask for the assistance of Cyril's father, Lord Grey. And of course, he really wasn't at first trying to hear it, wondering like why you come all the way down here just to question whether or not the legitimacy of a KIA letter. And he thought it was ridiculous with the whole notion about filling in his bones. And of course, Cyril stands up for his cousin and says like, I need you to listen, because I know what's going on with you and mom. You're getting divorced, and like, my cousin needs your help, and please just help us. Can you just please check? And so, Lord Grey goes to check on the legitimacy of the letter. while uh, the young girls back home, along with the Vincent, tried to get tried to interrupt the process of Isabel signing over her share of the land to the brother-in-law, causing all kinds of mischiefs and mishaps to distract. And back at the War Office, it turns out that uh, the letter that they must have received must have been a forgery because, as of right now, Rory is only missing in action. He's not killed in action. And so Norman's overjoyed, and they get ready to go back home. Not before Lord Grey has like a moment with his son and shake his hand, just out of respect how like as like a grown up he's being right now. So they end up going back, and thanks to some weird shenanigans with a pilot dropping one of those, foreshadowing missiles that lands in the field that didn't explode but caused like a fallout to knock over some ink over the paperwork, so it's unusable. And Norman and the others managed to get home and point out that the uncle has been lying this whole time, and he forged the KIA letter. And so he knows the jig is up. He admits it. Isabel cuffs him to a radiator or something. And as the others go out to hopefully defuse the bomb, thanks to looking up the paperwork, and they somehow manage to defuse the bomb. And Nanny McPhee gets her crow who's been eating like glass putty or mirror putty or something like that, that stucco or something like that. And so the bird, eats up like the explosive putty or something like that inside the missile, and rolls into the size of a balloon. It burps and sends like this kind of shock wave that blows away the henchwoman that tries to taxidermy the brother-in-law. Ends up saving him. They get blown away, and it also causes like a gust of wind to harvest the land, so that way they can get everything prepared for all that stuff. So the farm is like gonna be a-okay. And Nanny McPhee prepares to walk away. All the kids are freaking out, and the mother's boss points out, like, don't you recall what she says? When you don't want me but need me, I must stay. But when you want me but don't need me, then I must go. So they go chase after them. But not, before all that stuff, the old lady hugs Nanny McPhee and says, "It's so great to see you again, Nanny McPhee." And Nanny McPhee says, like, "It's always great to see you too, Aggie." And it turns out this old lady, the shop owner, turns out to have been like the baby from the first movie. And man, it was like that baby, really aged, given like the passes of time. So that's what I was concerned. Like, okay, like, given that she's been around like probably like many, probably like at most a couple of centuries. I'm not sure where she began, but it's like by a certain point, most people will probably recognize her if she ends up, walking downtown with some other group of kids or whatever like that, and she's not confronted by some old man she took care of when he was young back in the day. It's kind of like weird. It's like, okay, how do you, especially if you brazenly, hand wavy magic stuff. Yeah, I get it. You got the warts and stuff that disappear every time a kid learns a lesson, so you don't look the same by the end of the lessons. But you always appear at first as the way you appear to all kids, as this grotesque little woman. It's kind of wild to me. Like, nobody points out like some old man, "Hey, You're Nanny McPhee. I remember you when I was 10 years old. It's like, is nothing like that happening? Clearly, the guard recognized you when he was young. So you're just walking about like, I'm surprised no more people were pointing that kind of thing out. It's kind of wild to me, especially if you just willy nilly showing off your magic in public. But anyway, as they're chasing down Nanny McPhee walked past this soldier, and it turns out to be Rory, and all the kids and the wife is elated, and they all embrace the father who's safe and back home. And that's where the movie ends. And that's pretty much Nanny McPhee Returns. But of course, in the UK, it'll be called Nanny McPhee The Big Bang. Given, I guess, with the whole miss out situation, or also the time period that they're dealing with stuff. And I'm thinking like, okay, you got freaking magic powers. Why don't you come into the mix and, I don't know, magic yourself in the office of Hitler and just magic him away or turn him into a piglet or something, and you could just like, stop the war altogether like that. That was kind of weird. It's not like a time travel thing where you might disrupt stuff. You're literally in the same time period as him. So you can effectively end the war right then and there. As a matter of fact, where were you during WWE1? It's the whole thing kind of thing is like, you got like, you're around during this time period and you got these magic powers. You could have done a lot of good with that. But of course, you're using your whimsical powers just to, set right some naughty kids. Sure. You land in the hands of Santa Claus. Great. But anyway, like I said, this movie is okay. Just like, the first one was just okay. It did well in the box office at the time. But I guess they managed to tell enough story with this, but I can't imagine they'll be able to do another Nanny McPhee film, because what else? I'm sure you could probably, I don't know. I would say like, okay, Nanny McPhee goes to America during like, I don't know, the 1980s or something like that, and help out. Or it doesn't even have to be during like in America. You can still stay in the UK, but it's like, okay, like, during the 60s or the 80s, but I guess it'll get kind of stale after a while. But yeah, it's a fine film. Nothing to write home about. Definitely a good kids film. But next week, I'll be reviewing the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, and I'll go, and then the week following will be in June, starting Father's Day review month, and then I'll go right into Guardians of the Galaxy 2, because the first one is kind of very mother centered with Peter Quill, and then the sequel is very father centered. And I figured, okay, we'll just go back to back leading into the next month. I got quite a handful of Father's Day type of films to get through, but look forward to that. And I'll see you guys in a few minutes as I will cover the 4th season of Food Wars. So stay tuned for that. And once again, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the films Nanny McPhee and Nanny McPhee 2. Did you enjoy it as a kid? How often do you watch it? Do you have a favorite kid, favorite character, whatever? And all the stuff that you probably dislike about them. But yeah, that was Nanny McPhee Returns. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.